Place 33, Secrets of Universal Truths Revealed by Sherilyn Bridget Avalon. Chapter 18, Joseph and the Protoplasm. The phone rings, and it's Kenton. Sherilyn looks at the caller ID and answers. "Good evening, Kenton," she says in her best seductive yet casual voice. "Are you ready to go to the magic show?" he asked. Yes, we are," Sherilyn answers excitedly. "Be there in 5 minutes," he says. As Sherilyn helps Sally get ready, Sally tells her she's excited to meet Kenton. Sherilyn introduces them, and the two of them meld energetically as soon as they met. "To meet you, Kenton," she boasts in her sweet, most angelic voice. "Are you ready to see some magic?" he asks, his heart melting. "Mm-hmm," she says, and off they go. That night, Sally was the little star of the show. She went on stage with magician Lance Burton, and he levitated her. Then he gave her a magic kit, and he autographed it. She thought she was the luckiest kid in town. When we returned to the room, Sally thanked Kenton, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and then thanked him again for the great magic fun. "So sweet," Kenton murmurs, "but I really like her mommy." After several minutes of pleasantries, we sit down close together. The sexual energy begins whispering again, this time very loudly. Sherilyn is aware that Kenton wants to take her in his arms right there and then. In fact, I know if Sally were not there, Sherilyn probably would have submitted to his charms with no hesitation. Sherilyn pulled away, fearing Sally would hear. He runs his finger delicately over her face. She already knew he would be a kind, gentle lover, probably the best lover she would ever have. Sherilyn eventually caught her voice. "I'm sorry, can we continue this when Sally's not here?" "Sure, sweetie," Kenton says, with all his southern charm oozing through. "How about tomorrow night?" She felt the sexual tension between them. She felt it from the first time they met, when their knees touched in his office. The desire for both of them is hot and heavy. "I can hardly wait," Sherilyn whispered. "Yes," he mutters between kisses, "tomorrow." Sherilyn walked him to the door. She thanked him for a wonderful evening. "See you at 8 p.m., he says, still kissing her, having a hard time leaving. He finally pulls away with a sigh. "Okay, baby, I gotta go." 5 minutes after Kenton leaves, the phone rings. It's Sterling. "Can you meet me at the tunnel?" he asks. "Frank is going to talk with Joseph about his transcendence. You don't want to miss this." "Are you serious, Sterling? What do you see? What's going on?" Sherilyn questions him. "Meet me at the tunnel. I'll be there in 15 minutes. See you there." "The wheeled sphere, the tape, it turns," he interjects. "Bye, gotta go." "I'm so excited to see Joseph again," Sherilyn conveys.
"They're very nice to look at,"
Frank interjects, crouching in his usual position. "Where are they from?" Sherilyn is so curious.
"They're from what you identify as the Atlanteans,"
Frank answers.
"They're from beneath the water." Frank decided we should view them while he's in a good mood.
St. Stephen recites. "What do they look like?" she queries St. Stephen. Because, of course, when we go to the place, Sterling turns into you, St. Stephen, his higher self now. He chuckles.
"Oh, they're beautiful and interesting."
St. Stephen continues.
"I'm seeing them because Joseph talked about the protoplasm when he was alive on Earth. Frank wanted him to see it's more than what he said. First, he forgot to mention protoplasm has a blue hue. The blue tone is significant for anyone who interprets things within the perception of polarity. He can't describe something as singularly as he did. With his remark on the video regarding reactive protoplasm,
He was referring to a video Joseph Campbell made with the author, journalist, and commentator Bill Moyer back in the 80s. Then, St. Stephen recites,
let me tap into the pool of knowledge. Protoplasm, the colorless material comprising the living part of a cell, including the cytoplasm, nucleus, and other organelles. This is a mistake Joseph realizes quickly. Frank is showing Joseph protoplasm. This is protoplasm, Joseph.
Frank points out.
Why don't you see protoplasm as blue energy above the biological reactive substance of its animal nature. It also has a spiritual nature. Even though it's a rudimentary thing, these two aspects, the spiritual and the animal, work together in conjunction with one another.
Now, Frank instructs Joseph to take a good look, St. Stephen describes.
In the review of his life, Joseph erred by oversimplifying or eliminating half the polarized condition in the information he released. In his review, Frank wants to make sure Joseph understands this. As he traveled further down the path of his own life lesson, he was about to open the door to transcendence. He started falling back and falling short, not completing his previous thoughts due to his own subjective ego fear of death.
Sherilyn replies.
This skewed Joseph's perception of things,
St. Stephen continues.
particularly when he grew close to death. Now, Frank wants to make sure it's like Frank is beating him over the head with it.
Sherilyn murmurs again. Fear was something Joseph knew well. Frank asks,
Joseph, why were you here? Because I failed.
Joseph answers.
That's right, you fell right into my sphere.
Frank laughs. His sphere? Sherilyn queries.
Frank, fear, failed. It's all within the same sphere of energy, the F sphere. Joseph's hook was implanted. You know, the hook of the letter J?
Sherilyn agrees.
That's how it works. Joseph got caught up in that.
St. Stephen remarked.
You knew your challenge regularly, said Joseph. You recounted it to others, given your own experience. It was to reject lust and fear, reject the knowledge of it, and you communicated the situation well. However, when challenged with it personally, your own subjectivity, your fear of your own death, and of your own ego came up repeatedly. It tainted your thoughts. This made it easy to successfully trap your spirit. So, look at the protoplasm now. You can finally see it for what it really is. Simply explain it to yourself, and you'll have no fear. There's no fear here. There's only knowledge.
Frank concludes. So, explain it, Joseph, please, Sherilyn cajoles. Joseph talks now.
The embryos are blue because they speak to the spirit. If you can see, while in the Earth's sphere, what would be ultraviolet radiation, mechanically speaking, the electricity of energy bouncing off things.
Sherilyn contemplates his words.
This is part of the polarization, observing things in their entirety. I wasn't doing that at the time. I was trying to reduce things into a singular thought, ignoring polarity, Joseph says. Sterling can see what he sees through the feeling in the silence, Joseph remarked. He allows his mind to be so open and flat it touches all sides of his existence. Others can do this too. He's good at sorting out the things he sees. Nothing is ever all one thing. I should have stopped myself when I was speaking to Moyer that day. And I should have said, excuse me, the truth of it is, I'm not quite myself.
Sherilyn comments. I know you were speaking from your ego self. Maybe hypnosis would have helped you back then. Did you ever try that, Joseph?
No, I did meditation, Joseph continues. Color speaks to the spiritual quality of matter. Most people see virtually in black and white. Those who don't are the opposite end of the color spectrum. They see colors other people don't see. Violet is particularly important. Blue is of great consequence. I should have been more clear on core issues, like how to position your mind toward any given thought or grouping of thoughts. I'm referring to discussions of how to see both sides of the polarity and to form a triad of the wise perspective, the knowledgeable perspective, and the balanced perspective. It's putting your mind between the two poles.
Joseph continues.
No matter what you say or think, keep in mind there is a diametrically opposite experience also occurring while you're thinking it, saying it, or listening to it. Then put your mind in the middle. You want to have that juxtaposition while speaking to a person or a group. Keep that polarity in mind while thinking or analyzing something. This way, the polarization of your mind is balanced. You become as expanded as you can be. Then you never say something like what I said.
Joseph explains. Sherilyn's listening to his words intently. Joseph continues.
Funny, because I knew better, but the fear gripped me, and other things on my mind were distracting me. I was growing bitter, too. I was beginning to feel the loss of what was familiar.
Were you ill? What did you die of? Sherilyn questioned.
Ultimately, I died of old age.
He chuckles. Then he laughs harder.
I died of a rotting body. I knew it was rotting. We might as well call it what it is.
You died from cancer? Sherilyn quizzes.
Yes, I had that too. But it was a multiple process thing. My immune system was giving out, and I was experiencing distress. Mostly, I suffered an emotional death. Even though I was aware of everything happening, I was about to be reborn into another form. I was shackled to my ego, and it skewed my perception.
I see. But why is your foot in the cement? What does that mean? Sherilyn asked.
It's to teach me a lesson, he replied. I lost my footing. It's like running a race. When do you know lost the race? At the end. Not in the beginning, not in the middle, in the end.
Ah, right. Sherilyn agrees.
I lost my race in the end. I could have won, but I chose not to. It was a conscious decision, because the race was within my own mind.
Joseph explains. What about the log? Why are you sitting on a log?
The log represents something I am not to fall off of. The log represents stillness, calmness, which equates to my own center, or being centered and still. What do you do when you sit on a log? Joseph asks.
Be still.
Yes, and the more still we are, the more expanded we become. Therefore, sitting on the log is appropriate. Falling off the log is not. Losing your footing is a metaphor for being unable to complete the process of metamorphosis from my ego death. Funny, because I talked about it all the time while I was on Earth. The death of my physical self, my natural self, resulting in the birth of what obviously would be my spiritual self. The cycle is complete. The two halves are whole, and I betrayed my own wisdom. I gave into fear, which is a common failing.
Joseph admits. I'm sure you're not the only one. Yes, a multitude of souls make that mistake. That is what we're about to release, fear. Time for that sphere to move on, Sherilyn says to console him.
No, but I knew better. The God that the Hebrews constructed for people's minds is a God of domination, of subjugation, a warring God, a God that embodied aggressive male attributes. It pushed the goddess aside. It was the death of the goddess, the nurturer, the sensual, the procreator, and the birth of the destroyer, Zeus. It was the birth of the dominator, the aggressor, and virtually all that overtook the goddess energy. Odd as it sounds, I'm referring to the Antichrist. This gave rise to the dogma of the Christian religion, Joseph says, looking down. That's how polarization works, he continues. The Catholics attempt to resurrect the balance with the Virgin Mary, the goddess. It was misconstrued or actually deliberately manipulated by the extreme male dominant energy of the time. It almost made it, but even that was misinterpreted. People of intelligence wouldn't believe the notion of a virgin birth. That's not what it meant. It was a ridiculous thought. The birth of Christ was a metaphoric birth, like Buddha, being born from the side of his mother. Once again, the story was propagated by men.
Sherilyn repeats, keeping Joseph's stream of consciousness thoughts going.
This was meant to be viewed as a metaphor, a spiritual birth. The virgin birth speaks to the polarized opposite. The death of what? It speaks to the human animal, and all that embodies into the new virgin spiritual self. That's what the virgin birth is about, Joseph related.
Right, Sherilyn agrees again.
If God didn't live in all of us and wasn't the other half of himself, we wouldn't recognize one another. And if we didn't live in God and weren't the other half of that energy, we wouldn't recognize one another either, he enlightened Sherilyn.
Really? Why is that? She questioned. He replied,
You can only recognize what's familiar. That's how you know when something's truly foreign. But even that's a trick. If you recognize something as foreign, then as infinitesimal as it may be, there's something in that thing that you are calling foreign in terms of reference that is also identifiable within yourself. If you can't identify something within yourself at all, when viewing something outside of yourself, you can't see it.
That's interesting. Sherilyn ponders the thought.
That's why the notion of God being totally unlike yourself and unattainable in terms of purity is an absurd notion. It's unfortunate that most people's fear is so great. A small number of men have been at this juncture for millennia, about 5,000 years. It's so easily injected into the minds of both men and women thought. There must be balance, he states. Sterling coined the appropriate word feminine, which represents woman and or man. It's both female and male energy balanced. This is a very good thing,
Joseph assured Sherilyn.
The word feminine will connote a balanced energy. Balanced energy, bipolar energy, the god and the goddess will face each other on equal ground of influence, with strength, purity, and enlightenment. This will result in peace of mind and an energetic peace. Of course, this is a balance Christians don't want. Christ intended equality for men and women because he was both genders, and he knew it. He believed in treating others with godliness and the consciousness of Christ. This was attainable for virtually anyone. That is, anyone who worked hard enough and is willing to surrender their ego to the extent that they can be balanced for other people and themselves. It speaks to a spiritual balance and a spiritual respect to the polarity of men, women, nature, spirit, and on.
Joseph declares.
Of course, it was completely misinterpreted by the warriors of the time. The warring groups started evolving and intermingling the more gregarian people, the farmers, the growers, and the nurturers of the land. That's when we start seeing the rise of the male aggressor dominating the nurturer goddess in her fertile energy. It's just the way the pendulum swung. Of course, this is beginning to change.
Joseph says with a knowing glance.
Inventing or reinventing words is powerful.
Joseph states.
Getting the message of what the feminine is all about to the world is important. Both genders will be attracted to the feminine balance slowly at first. The momentum will culminate into a dominant new thought. When I refer to dominance, I mean a dominance to finally achieve balance. You see it in symbols, riddles, poetry, and metaphors. The symbol of Eve eating the apple when God said don't eat it is representative of taking responsibility for your own actions. Joseph expounds.
Right, Sherilyn agrees with him.
You should be open with your bisexuality, he directs Sherilyn.
What? No, that was when I was younger. She shakes her head.
Do you know why you relate so well to men? Joseph asks Sherilyn.
Oh, I guess it's because I grew up with only brothers. She mulls over the thought. I understand their needs, I guess. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's about male energy matching.
There's a simple answer,
Joseph continues.
You, as the human animal and human spiritual being, you are both. You encompass both male and female energy. If you were all female energy, you couldn't relate to man, and vice versa, because of how life has structured itself. It could have gone many other ways, but this is how it went. The energy dictates you can't recognize Sterling or any other males without being part male or masculine yourself. Sterling can't relate to the female Sherilyn or other women without being part female.
Himself.
This is a fundamental spiritual truth. That truth deserves acceptance, reverence, contemplation, and implementation to help achieve balance. It should be taught in church, Joseph suggested.
Yeah, I totally agree, says Sherilyn.
It's so fundamental. We're all both male and female energy. If we weren't, we would not recognize each other. That's how it's structured and how it evolved, Joseph relayed.
So, some people have more or less male and female energy than others. And you're saying I have more male energy than most women? Sherilyn probed.
Yes, absolutely. Which is a good thing, he confirms. You received that through random fate times karma. It's a good thing, but it would be better if you were more honest about it. It involves much more than overt sex acts, because, as Sterling explained earlier today, it speaks to the crack that keeps yawning open. Eventually, it will become a canyon. Whatever's going on at the surface is also the opposite experience going on, of course, he explained.
In the spiritual world? Sherilyn clarified.
Yes, and if it's a natural interaction, such as a sex act, there is a spiritual dichotomy of inexperience occurring at the same time. Without that happening at the same time, you wouldn't have sex in the first place. That may be a difficult concept to grasp, Joseph says.
Yeah, I don't understand it exactly, Sherilyn's voice trails off.
Well, that's because it involves a perception beyond your five senses,
Joseph explains.
So, in the spiritual world, Kenton and I are having sex, she asked.
No, you and Kenton are playing out a polarized interaction of energy. It has nothing to do with sex. It's a manifestation of the natural, basic instinct within the five senses of your earthly dimension. Primarily, you're aware of what's taking place on the flip side. It's just as energetic, maybe even more energetic, he explains. It's something that could be explained by Eastern religions in your world at this time. In particular, Kundalini. The Western world, this is more difficult, because the social life situation is so masculine in its nature. It's exceptional for a person to begin thinking logically about what's going on. For a minute, let's change out the word think for experience. You must experience through a medium that doesn't involve your five senses, like the experience of sex in this case is going on within your senses. Imagine the opposite of what all that could be, the opposite manifesting experience, Joseph explains.
Of course, Sherilyn nods.
Then you'd have at least a fragment of perceptual light on the matter. That will clue you into what's really going on, Joseph adds.
Nothing works without polarization, correct? Sherilyn confirms.
Correct, he nods emphatically. The fact that you can't see it is a moot point because it relates to the parameters of the dimension you're in. That speaks to the connection between time and space, and in your case, the five senses. This is where imagination can be so rewarding. You can't imagine anything that isn't real anyway, Joseph says, smiling.
Yeah, right. It's real in the spiritual world. I've heard that before, Sherilyn admits.
Think of the antithesis or the opposite, and you're on the right track. Pretty soon you won't be thinking, you'll just experience. That's as close to a definitive word as possible, given what we're trying to explain. St. Stephen interjects.
Okay, Sherilyn agrees cautiously.
Joseph relays, I should have taken this as far as I'm taking it here, relating it to you. On Earth, while teaching and writing, I was almost there. I almost made it. I almost won the race, but of course, I got stuck. The style of discourse in this kind of admission is truly a revelation for you. Why? It is because you will end up with a much more progressed world, a much more balanced world, and a much kinder world. We need to return to this fertility. We need to get back to nurturing on balance, especially now. People like you and Sterling are contributors. He has the potential to be a principal contributor, coinciding with his primary energy. Unfortunately, Frank, grinning with delight right now, has chosen to intervene in Sterling's life in a way that is preventing his highest good to come to fruition.
I know. It's a shame. It's a real shame, Sherilyn agrees. He continues.
Sherilyn, if you'll surrender, the nurturing will be restored. It will allow him to prosper in every endeavor. You'll have done a great thing for your karma, for the evolution of what will occur, and you'll please your mother Angie. Then you can scurry home at the end of this particular chapter, and you can osmose under her skirt along with St. Stephen at her side. Finally, the metaphor will be balanced. This isn't happening solely by you, of course. It's energy at work. Energy is a collective thing. In fact, some energy accelerates at a faster rate, which equates to going further than other energy, even though it's basically the same stuff. These concepts should be taught in churches and houses of worship. What is energy? What does it mean? What is a metaphor? What does it mean? What does organized religion offer that parallels energy? What does it mean? How can energy be harnessed? How does this result in more progressive, expanded quality of life? It's all about expansion. Why is the mirror principle of polarization legitimate? Why is it so difficult for most people to understand? Why is it so unbelievable? What you appear to be doing isn't what you're doing at all. It's the opposite of something else. It's about understanding the makeup of God in spirit and nature. As two halves of a whole, the expanded thought is that of a triad. It is a legitimate concept. Why is this so difficult for people to understand? Joseph insists.
Well, it just is, Sherilyn snaps defensively, her head spinning with questions.
If there was balance in bipolarity, this wouldn't be so difficult to understand. You literally are you're rekindled in a reborn kind of sense. It will start developing into part of your real world. You won't be dealing with merely your five senses anymore. You'll encounter the spiritual side of yourself along with the senses involving your physical existence. If you can, you'll reduce the pain, take the pressure off yourself, and allow your feelings to radiate forth. Follow your feelings, and people will gravitate your way. You sort it out, Neutralize. There's too much intensity here between females and males. Neutralize the acid and the friction, Mr. Bellows.
Okay, but Joseph, I just got out of a bad relationship and I don't like someone telling me what to do. Sterling is a little too bossy. Not when he's St. Stephen. When he's one with his higher self, he's perfect. Thank you, Joseph. We must be getting back. Thanks for all your information. We love you. Carolyn replied, walking to the elevator back toward reality. Wait, I want to check something out. Sterling blurts out. Joseph is coming with us. Let's go back to the elevator. Joseph can go with us to the elevator? Really? Sherilyn questions.
Yes, he can come.
St. Stephen answers. But isn't his foot stuck in the cement? Sherilyn replied.
Yes, although as you see, he's missing his foot, he can go in the elevator by changing his molecular structure.
St. Stephen replies. Isn't it getting any better? Sherilyn queried.
Sure. Eventually, he'll get it back, but eventually it can be a long time. So go ahead and push the button for level 7.
St. Stephen instructs Sherilyn. She pushed the button for level 7, and instantly they are there. This is what Joseph wanted to see. They call this the hangman's level, Sterling informed Sherilyn. I thought it was Mysteries Revealed, she counters him. Well, we're about to reveal a mystery. I need a pen and paper, please, Sterling asked. From the third dimension, Sherilyn hands Sterling a pen and a paper. Sherilyn explains. When in the 7th level dimension, that's like a big hand coming down from heaven.
Joseph wants to explore.
St. Stephen relays calmly.
7 represents not just the principle, reality, and phenomenon of the eternal return, but also how we get hung up with this belief. It's easy to get hung up by the number 7. The 7 is considered a lucky number because people know innately after every 7 there's a new beginning and also a death. This is why marriage therapists refer to the 7-year itch. There's a pattern in life and in nature applicable to the eternal return in many arenas in respect to the principle and force and reality behind eternal return. For example, every 7 years many things die and begin anew. I'll give you an example. Every 7 years, on a biophysical cellular level, you become a new being. You have a new cellular body. If you have a persistent health problem, never give up. If you're patient enough, the body often renews itself. This is another example why patience and maturity is vital for enlightened people. If you're patient enough and can endure the pain, you'll establish a new beginning. In this instance, you'll see a new beginning of your cellular body. St. Stephen continues. This is why Joseph wanted to come today. If you have dead cells at the end of a 7-year cycle, you'll be reborn. You'll be rejuvenated due to your new cellular structure every 7 years. This also occurs if you have a neurological problem. It doesn't matter which medical problem you're experiencing. If it's a physical problem, the source is your cells. Reduce stress, boost your immune system, and stay the course. Under an attack of cancer, if you make it 7 years after the cancerous cells are cut loose, you will go into remission. It's the same way with something viral. With all illnesses, if you make it from the inception of the disease for 7 years, then you'll be well again.
That gives us new hope. Maybe you can use longevitology. Sherilyn interjects.
The reason is because you'll have all new cells in your body. Cellular regeneration is real. New cells are forming every minute. A cell has a life of 7 years inside our bodies. The cells of our bodies are constantly dying and reforming, Joseph conveys. A better word than dying is to say our cells are restructuring all the time. A kidney problem can go into remission. If you have no other problem, your body will take the part of your organ left functioning, and it will remain functioning from that point forward. After 7 years, all the old cells are replaced with new cells. Then you have another life of 7 years. If there is no new disease present, you'll have a healthy organ the rest of your life.
What about AIDS syndrome? Acquired immune deficiency syndrome, Sherilyn asked.
Because of the complex nature of AIDS, the body feeds on itself. The trouble with the 7-year cycle with AIDS is the same thing occurs if someone makes it 7 years. Joseph replies. He continues, AIDS is a retrovirus which creates a new challenge for the body. It's not just about replacing new cells. Even healthy cells begin to be unaffected by the powerful drug that normally rids cells of the virus. Gradually, it becomes more difficult to find substances that will penetrate a cell, rid them of viral contamination, and allow the cells to become healthy and whole. That's the difference between a retrovirus and a conventional virus. Conventional viruses enter our cells through the body's natural immune system. It will rid the body of the virus, then the cell is healthy again, and the person is healthy again. Retrovirus cells literally feed on themselves. Drugs can slow the retrovirus down to a point where there are many more new cells and the number of bad cells is reduced. The old diseased cells are replaced within the 7-year cycle. Gradually, only new cells are present. There are sevens in pairs, which equate to conscious awareness in the life below. This provides the foundation of water. Many believe it's below your level of awareness. Below what are influential bodies of probable thought. A thought isn't a thing yet. It's the possibility of a thing. Here, under the water, beneath the unconscious mind, Joseph has hooked into new information, St. Stephen explains.
Sherilyn asks. The probability of what is yet to come? My daughter Margot once told me, Mom, you're like a starter culture. Without you, we wouldn't exist. We couldn't rise to our fullest potential. I thought that was very sweet of her, and I'm sure Margot is forgiven now.
A starter culture is a microbiological culture which performs fermentation, Joseph continues. Starters usually consist of a cultivation, colonization, and fermentation. Yes, you can help in the process of cultivating feminine energy.
Angie telepathically relays, you are microcosms for what is going on. Frank, the Black Knight, and I, the White Crane, and you, the forlorn and separated daughter, you are a fragment of myself incarnate.
She wants and feels the need to attract you.
Joseph says.
She wants you to write. She hands Sherilyn the magic wand of crystal light.
Joseph continues.
Angie says she's a daughter as well. Her mother is dead and transformed. She transmutated into her. He says an archetypal force was once her mother. He gave birth to her. Her name is Athena. She was born a male, but transmutated, then had a metamorphosis of energy and became bipolar and female in her appearance. Still a warrior, but with the ability to conceive and propagate life, Angie is her daughter, and now that she is gone, Angie presides. Angie is the new energy, the new force, the new mass on balance. larger than the polarized Frank, the new feminine energy.
You're speaking of the Greek goddess Athena? Okay, I guess you could say I'm part of a starter culture in the exchange of energy. From male and female to feminine, a more balanced energy.
Yes, are you ready?
Joseph replies.
Here is a poem written by Sterling. Love is the fire. Love is the fire from whence we all came. Since all is sorrowful, love is no game. The stronger the love, the more the pain. In tribute to you, Mother, and all before us, for we are the givers, and to us shall we know where all have come from, and where we all go. Thank you for listening to Place 33 Secrets of Universal Truths Revealed. I believe that Joseph Campbell came through the hypnosis to relay unfinished information, but we make no claims to his establishment or to hurt anyone in any way. Thank you for listening, Sherilyn Bridget Avalon.